In this video that you're watching, I'm leading my class through the Siu Nim Dao form of the martial art known as Wing Chun. The Siu Nim Dao form is like the foundation of a building. The most well-constructed building won't be durable or even usable unless it has a really well-constructed foundation. If you've ever watched the construction of a building, you've seen that it takes a really long time to complete the foundation. Siu Nim Dao is the same. Mastery of the Siu Nim Dao form provides that well-constructed foundation upon which the complete martial art of Wing Chun can be built. What you're watching are a few of the Wing Chun two-person training practices. They're called Dan Chi Sao and Luk Sao. Lisa is my senior student and training partner. Before I go any further, I have to tell you that I have a long history in the martial arts, the internal martial arts, but I'm not a Wing Chun expert. In fact, I just began serious training in Wing Chun in May of 2018. My expertise is not in Wing Chun, it's in teaching people how to develop self-compassion, self-exploration, self-caring, self-empowerment, and self-efficacy. It just so happens I'm able to utilize the Chu Shong Tin lineage of the martial art of Wing Chun, especially the Siu Nim Dao form, which you watched, and these Chi Sao exercises as powerful vehicles for what I was already teaching before, those particular things. I want to say something about practice, because just like learning a musical instrument or anything, a foreign language, a martial art is all about practicing. The act of practicing doesn't have to be drudgery. In fact, for me, the act of practicing is an act of self-caring and self-valuing. The Siu Nim Dao form is not something to squeeze into your day. Personally, I build each day around Siu Nim Dao, practicing every chance I get throughout the day and evening. Consciously choosing to practice in and of itself is self-empowering. That's one of the ways I teach self-empowerment. It's important to recognize your sense of choice, especially when you don't feel like it. Consciously choosing to practice is an act of self-caring and self-valuing. Consciously choosing to practice is a message to yourself that you matter. Ask yourself if you value yourself enough to set aside practice time as a very special time that's just for you. In fact, the way I see it, not practicing is an act of self-abandonment. And I also think you shouldn't ever practice because you think you should. To do so is very disempowering. I teach self-empowerment. Self-empowerment is about taking charge, and if you're telling yourself you should, Well, don't listen to that. We all have to find a way to make daily practice satisfying. Some days, I find it extremely challenging to find the time. But as long as there's something in it that's satisfying, I'm able to make the time. If you dread practicing, you won't practice. And in fact, if you dread practicing, you probably shouldn't even be practicing. Again, that would be disempowering. So, at those times when your motivation to practice is lacking, it's important to explore and find what you really want from the practice. Because once you identify what you really want from the practice, that will give you your motivation. If you maintain a daily practice, then during those times when you're confronted with a particularly stressful period in your life, that practice that you've been maintaining each day can carry you through it, providing support and continuity. In fact, the Siunim Dao form can become a very healthy refuge during times of stress. I perform the Siunim Dao form every chance I get. I perform this ritual several times throughout the day, not because I want to achieve anything. I do it actually for the immediate full body experience of every shape of the form. In fact, I learned the hard way in my younger days that striving for mastery actually prevents experiencing the deeper levels of any art. The more I perform Siunim Dao each day without any striving, the more self-connected I feel. And living from your center means that you're always home, where you live, in your body, in your center. This is learned by experiencing what it feels like to practice the form in your center. So, over time, with enough practice, once you've had that experience enough times, it'll become your default whenever you're under stress. Instead of reaching, grasping, straining, you'll simply stay in your center. And if another person is involved, you'll be able to more easily read that person's center. Siunim Dao form has resulted in my having dramatic reductions in arthritic and other pain. In fact, when I first started training with Nima in early July of 2018, I had to sit on a bar stool in my kitchen. My lessons were on Skype, so he was in Hong Kong, and my lessons were on Skype, and I had to sit on a bar stool in order to perform the Siunim Dao form. I was in too much pain to stand. After a couple of months of practicing Siunim Dao throughout the day, I was standing and practicing all day long with no pain. I love the complexity of this art. When you watch me doing the Siunim Dao form, I know it looks like I'm just moving my arms around, but there are lots of numerous complex mind-body processes that I'm performing. It's just that this is an internal martial art, so you don't see them. Although the Wing Chun passed down from Chu Shong Tin is an incredibly effective martial art for combat, it's much more than that, and it's the much more that really interests me at my stage in life. This practice is about continually experimenting, researching, exploring to discover the new things about the power of mind-body unity. It's about being a mind-body explorer, discovering what works for each of us, and occasionally finding answers to perplexing mind-body questions for each of us. Complex internal practices like Taigong and Sang. I haven't told you about those, but you will learn them. Unfortunately, they're not like buying a new app where you just buy it, download it, and install it. It takes a long time to learn these things. And the complex internal practices lead to the gradual cultivation of the Nim Dao state, and eventually, for those who reach mastery, the cultivation of Nim Lik, which is more of a science-based version of Qi. The Nim Dao state takes years of experimentation. Nim Lik requires a lifetime of committed practice, and even then, most only achieve a low level of it. Chu Shong Tin had a high level of it. This practice involves patiently being willing to dwell in the unknown. Because of the way I teach, the unknown involves courageously staying with the full body experience of uncomfortable feelings. Most of us have various ways of not feeling things that we don't want to feel. To me, the most courageous warriors, not warriors, but warriors, are those who are willing to go into the scary places in their minds. Many of the people I worked with as a psychologist in mind-body medicine, and who I work with currently in teaching my students in the class, have suffered abuse as young children by their parents or other caregivers. The very people they should have been able to go to in order to feel safe. I'm one of those people. That's probably why my approach to teaching the Chu Shong Tin lineage of Wing Chun is to provide a safe environment in the class so that my students can learn how to courageously go where they've never been before in their minds. These places become accessible when we learn how to release the bodily tension that previously was used in attempting to suppress our unwanted feelings, things like shame, fear, rage, and all the other icky stuff that we don't want to feel. I am teaching a martial art, but my heroes are not cage fighters. My heroes are really my former clients and some of my current students who suffer with fierce inner demons. Yet they keep coming back week after week to engage in self-exploration. They courageously take risks, participating in class activities that clearly make them uncomfortable. Yet they still keep coming back week after week. These are the students, these are the people who are my inspiration. Quite commonly, new students show up that seem to me to be so tense and afraid that I think, oh, I'll never see them again after this first class. A few years later, they're still in my class. And you know what? If you saw them in the beginning and you saw them now, you'd agree with me that they're unrecognizable because of the self-empowerment and self-compassion that they cultivated, that they did. They did it. I didn't. I didn't give them that. They cultivated these skills since they first started. So, Mindful Wing Chun, as I teach it, is about self-exploration, taking emotional risks rather than physical risks. For someone who is shame-prone or filled with self-doubt or self-loathing, and whose mind chatter is filled with self-deprecating thoughts, for those people, and I've been one of those people, it can seem like there is no safe place. Even when we're alone, it's hard to feel safe. And so, when you're the one continually putting yourself down, there's just no place to go. The only path to safety is the path through the very thing you're most afraid of. Going around harmful mind chatter with self-distraction, dissociation, avoidance only serves to guarantee more suffering. Whereas courageously allowing yourself to be fully present with your moment-to-moment experience in this class leads to self-compassion, self-empowerment, self-efficacy, self-valuing, and loving self-care.